Hello people, wanted to say thank you for your maturity and responses to the last video I uploaded. They have been thoroughly appreciated. I am reading all of the comments and I very much appreciate your perspective. Let's get into some tips and tricks. Okay, so here's a concept that I found very useful, and I thank Benny here, or Banny, for helping me out. I may murder him in a moment, not sure. But this is a concept that works best in turreted vehicles. Now, you'll see this situation fairly often. Banny over here, or another tank over there, like you don't want to get shot by your big old 152mm gun, and you want them to. But they are not going to just pop out and let you shoot them, and there's other tanks around, other things are going on. Now, an interesting thing that you can do with a turreted vehicle is you can point your turret wherever you want, and you can aim at that corner. Now, let's imagine that Banny is looking at my tank right now. For all he knows, I'm aiming at something else and my attention is distracted. 90% of the time, if you do this when you got a cheeky bugger sitting out on the side, you lock your turret off there, you maybe go backwards and forwards a bit, and you wait for the moment, and they will start to poke out. They'll think, oh, he's looking the other way, they'll start to poke out. And what doing this does is it allows you to get rid of that 1-2 second reaction time that you have to have if you want to realise and then scope in and aim. If you are just pre-aimed while doing this on the corner, then instantly you can just turn your tank, snapshot it, and a lot of the time, you will get that cheeky shot off, and especially if that tank is a one-shot, you can pick up some easy kills with just that bit of kind of psychological trickery, just by locking off your turret and acting like, oh, I'm not aware, and then bam, you'll pick up a kill. Alright, okay, so this one is about blind fires. Now, I happen to know that Banny in his T30 is sat over here in this bush, right? Now, the thing about blind fires, the way shell mechanics work, is when you can't see a target, guns in water tanks automatically adjust how high they go, especially shells with arcs based on how far your target is away, right? That's done automatically. What that means is that when you can't actually see a tank, your shell will function differently to when the tank is actually there and the shell is aimed at it. And it becomes particularly prevalent when blind firing with shells with a high arc, like maybe a Cromwell or a Cruiser 2. Now, in this situation, we're just demonstrating concepts here, so I'm going to try and miss Benny. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that right now, my shell is not aimed to hit that bush. It's instead, you can see it there, the shell's aimed to hit the ground behind the bush. And that can and can't be a problem. Occasionally, it's appropriate for a shell to do that. But if I fire here, watch the arc of the shell. It goes all the way through and to the other side. Now, can be okay, but you can do it differently. You see, if you fire in third person, it becomes far easier for you to aim your shell exactly where you want it to go. Rather than through the target, you can aim it directly at the ground. This is useful with HE, or if you have a circumstance, a bit of land where you can aim just on the other side of the bush. Let's say you're blind firing at a target with a bit of armor, right? And you want to deliberately aim at the lower plate. If you aim in first person, you're going to miss completely and probably bounce. But if you aim in third person, then you can get a solid hit. And look where I'm aiming in first person. Right, that's incredibly difficult to do, but if you're in third person, your camera is slightly elevated behind your tank, meaning that you can aim down at a surface with greater ease when you're looking for those blind fires. Okay, so here's another concept that's very, very useful and I think underappreciated. By default in water tanks, the R and F functions result in your tank, if I push F, automatically reversing. If I push R, automatically moving forward. Now, you can adjust the speed of these. If I double tap F, I'm going to go backwards faster. If I double tap R, I'm going to go pretty much full speed, right? But what this also means is you can utilize this for exposure control. And what I mean by that is, when you have a tank like a T-49 which has a very, very long aim time and quite derpy characteristics, you could have an example, an E100 or a KV2, generally you're speaking about things with moderate to good mobility with bad gun stabilization. The T-49 is a brilliant example, because if I want to blind fire this bush, right, and I pop out, I've then got to wait that long for it to aim. That's a long fucking time to wait in front of a T-30 in a bush. But what I can do is I can aim at the bush in cover, and then I tap R once. And you can see I'm actually fully aimed as I go out, and I've just cut my exposure time by at least a second and made a fully aimed shot without even having to aim in the open. So you simply aim in cover, tap the R function once, or the F function if you want to, and suddenly you can move into a firing position without having to do that aim in front of the enemy tank. So another thing that I found is sort of underappreciated, because it's not necessarily common. People don't take enough time to appreciate the merits of some of these stock guns. Like the T-69 is a good example. I mean, T-69 is a very, very out of meta tank at the moment. But I found that it was easier for me to grind this tank using the stock gun than the fully upgraded gun. For one, the stock gun has APCR, right, and the pen difference between standard ammo is only 6. That 6 for me is compensated for by the APCR's faster shell travel time and better performance against spaced armor compared to the armor piercing. I also had 5 shells and a 16 clip reload, which made it just feel that much more flexible, right? Now, the top gun's by no means bad on the vehicle itself is kind of bad in this current meta of the game, but still, its gun is... there's a viable choice there. And this extends as well if you look at things, good examples. Tier 9, you've got the E50, and in the Japanese tech tree, you have the Type 61. These are two vehicles that offer genuine gun choices that I would say you need to decide upon them based on your playstyle, right? The E50's gun choices, you've got a 390 alpha damage gun, or you've got a 240 alpha damage gun, right? And these are mirrored on the Type 61, where are we? Here we go. Let's look at our good old Type 61. You'll see that these guns are actually very similar. Got 105, and you've got the 90mm, right? These are your choices on these vehicles. One of them will offer you fantastic DPM. I mean, absolutely fantastic. 12 rounds per minute with 240 alpha damage. These guns are incredible for DPM, right? Whereas this one offers you alpha damage. Now, that's only 360. It's because of the changes to the STB1. That's interesting, actually. Did not know that. I think there's a greater argument for using the stock gun on the Type 61, the 90mm, purely because the Type 61 has greater mobility, general mobility, than the E50, right? And as a result, you feel like you're more likely to be flanking enemy tanks, needing that rate of fire to take off tracks and stuff like that, than will be needed on the E50. It also makes sense because the penetration on the Type 61 is a little less. On the premium, it's higher for some reason, because it's heat instead of APCR, I guess. But these guns actually have magnets, so don't always blaze past your stock guns in vehicles. Think about how they can be the most effective. Additional candidate that I begrudge myself for mentioning, the T-49 is actually a brilliant tier 9 light tank if you use the 90mm gun. Now, it's nowhere near as fun, and I will judge you for doing it, but let's say you needed a tier 9 light tank, American light tank for some missions, right? You probably want to start using this gun, just for its DPM, its reliability, right, and its consistency. stock guns can be good. So one of the most misleading statistics in World of Tanks, believe it or not, is traverse speed. Now the Hetz is a great example of this. It's listed in the gauge at 32 degrees a second. Now, does this look like 32 degrees a second? No, it doesn't, because it's well over 60. And that is because traverse speed is different on all different types of terrain. There's 20 different types of terrain. There's hard, medium, and soft, right? And so, if you look at the Hetzer on soft terrain, it looks fairly mediocre. But hard terrain, that is a huge disparity. And this is true of all tanks in the game, and yet what's listed in the gauge is remarkably inadequate for giving you the idea of whether you can actually change your traverse speed dramatically based on what type of terrain you're on. You can see here, 62 degrees a second on the Hetzer on hard terrain, 45 on medium, 27 on soft, right? So what it shows you in the gauge is basically closer to that soft statistic than it is to hard or medium. And on something like a Hetzer, where the disparity is that great, it becomes important to know that. Because if you're being outflanked, you can actually use that. You can actually say, okay, can I get myself onto hard terrain? Because it's instantly going to give me 30 degrees a second extra traverse speed in an attempt to catch whatever tank I'm chasing. And so it's worth noting, when you play a new vehicle, or you get into a new vehicle, come to tanks.gg, look at stuff like the gun constraints, look at the traverse speed on different types of terrain, and remember them, because they can seriously assist you in your gameplay. So your fun fact for today is the amount of time that it takes this, the Batcher 15555, with a 25% crew, to traverse its turret one time. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. It has been an absolute pleasure making this video for you. As always, thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. And do check out the highlights we posted today. And don't play a batch at 15555.